Okay, in this lecture I'm going to explain how you can store data within the browser. And there's two ways in which you can do this. You can do this using cookies, and you can do this using HTML5 local storage. I'm going to explain both of these, difference between them, and in your projects I'm expecting you to use HTML5 local storage. But I think it's worth explaining cookies first because they're sort of ubiquitous, particularly on older systems. So with cookies, you're storing data in a small text file in the user's computer. And the problem that cookies are there to solve is how can we remember information about the user. So in your e-commerce website, you're going to do customer tracking and recommendation, right? Pretty much every website that sells you something will do customer tracking and recommendation. So you want to be able to know that this user was browsing, last Tuesday and looking at, dog biscuits, whatever it was. And then maybe the next time they come to your website, you can make some suggestions about dog biscuits. Or, there's many, many applications where you want to remember information about the user. So when the user visits the page, the server can save a cookie on the user's browser. And the next time they visit the page, that cookie is sent back to the server. And so it knows that that user has already bought something or was already looking at the website previously. So a little example. So here's the sort of person in the browser. They get a page from the server, and the server also sends a little text file over, sends a little bit of text over, storing a string of key value pairs, right? Pet, dog, age 5, color black. Maybe, the user's registered already. Then they've got the details in the database, and so they're storing the data about the user in the browser there. And then the next time this person goes to the same website, the cookie that was stored previously in there is sent back to the server. Now the server knows something about the user. Before the first time they visited the page, the server knows nothing about the user because there's no cookie stored. The second time they go back to the page, the cookie is being sent back to the server. So the server can then customize the user experience. They can say, hello, John, what a lovely dog. Would you like, I've got a big sale on products for middle-aged dogs that go great with black, for example. So they can customize what they're selling to the user. And there's a lot of fine-tuning of prices as well. So if they didn't buy the dog biscuits last Tuesday, after looking at them for half an hour, let's say, then the week after, maybe you can reduce the price a little bit to tempt the user to buy those same dog biscuits. So to read and write cookies, we use the document cookie property. So this is, again, part of the document object model. So we just not document object model, but part of the document. The document has a cookie property. So if we want to set a cookie, we do document.cookie and then assign that to whatever cookie we want it to be set. In this case, we've got a key separated by equals and then a value. By default, the cookie is deleted when the browser is closed, but you can set an expiry date, and if you set that in the future, then the cookie will be kept so that the next time the user opens the browser and communicates with the website, that cookie will still be in the browser and will send it to the server. By default, cookies belong to the current page. You can also set a path parameter so that it can belong to the entire website, so that any page on the same domain can receives the cookie when the user retrieves any page on the domain. So we can retrieve cookies just using document cookie will give us all the cookies in one string. So the annoying thing about cookies is you get them all at once. Cookies just exist as a single long string, in this, I think separated by semicolons, right? So you have username equals John Smith, expires equals Thursday, blah, 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 path equals there. It's a bunch of key and value pairs separated with an equals, the key separated from the value with an equals mark, and then semicolons separating each key value pair. And then so to get the cookies, we do document cookie. To set the cookies, we do document cookie. In this case, we're setting a cookie, with username, blah, 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 blah. And if you want to delete a cookie, you set the expires parameter to a date in the past. So in this case, this is 1970. So if we set it expiring 1970, then it'll be immediately deleted. The annoying thing about cookies as well is that, so we set a cookie here that has a set of parameters, username, expires, and maybe the path or whatever. Then we set another cookie, and then we have to alert document cookie. It's going to give us all of the cookies together. So there's only ever a single string containing all of the cookies and all the data about the cookies within the browser. They're all appended to each other. So cookies have their uses, but they've got their limitations as well. One of the limitations is your storage is limited to 4 kilobytes. So in practical terms, that's probably not going to kill you, but in some other context, that could be a limitation. More annoyingly is you've got to have a, copy and paste some kind of function that's going to fish out the keys and values for you from this long kind of cookie string. Okay, so you've got a long string with everything in it, and you've got to pick, if you want to pick out a particular cookie's name or value, whatever, you've got to mess around doing lots of string processing. And for these reasons, and because much more of modern websites is driven by JavaScript running in the browser, they came up with local storage in HTML5, which in my view is much easier to use, and in many contexts a lot better than cookies. So HTML5 local storage is a simple way of storing key value pairs in the browser using JavaScript. The storage, as with all these things, is specific to each domain. That's for security reasons. You shouldn't allow one website to read the storage of another website, right? You can have a choice between persistent storage that remains in the browser forever, or session storage that is deleted when the browser's closed. And you've got tons of space to store stuff. You've got 5 to 10 megabytes of storage available. So 2 types of storage. As I said, they've got local storage, which just persists forever, as long as the user doesn't clear all their private data. And we've got session storage, where you're just storing data for a single session. So maybe this would be appropriate for a shopping basket or something, and this would be appropriate for like long-term customer tracking recommendation kind of stuff. And we can using HTML local storage is a total breeze because it behaves just like any other JavaScript object. So we can has a method setItem where we can set a key and a value pair, in this way using a method. But and then we can access them, using getItem to pull so you specify the key that we want to retrieve. But really, you're going to use the dot notation most of the time because it's so much easier to use. I think you can also use square brackets, as I'll come to later, but never mind, I haven't included that here. Most of the time, you're going to be using this kind of approach where you just use local storage. This is your key here, last name equals Smith, to create a new key who's called last name, whose value is Smith. And then if we want to retrieve it at a later point in time, we can do local storage dot the name of the key, and that will return the value of the key stored in local storage. So it's very, very easy to use using the dot notation, and you access it, treat it just like any old JavaScript object. Session storage works in exactly the same way, except the data is only stored for one session. So in this case, instead of local storage, we do session storage dot setItem, sets in key and value, or session storage dot key equals value to assign a value to a particular key in session storage. So it works exactly the same way as this. It's just temporary storage then. You can clear all of the storage if you want to, which is useful in some cases. And then we just call the clear method on local storage or session storage. So got a little bit of an example. And yeah, this is like remembering a person. So I'll give a demo of this, probably easier than trying to talk through this slightly complicated page. So let's have a little demo of what this is. So this is a little demo of local storage in action. So here we have a form input, right? We've got a button, and what we're doing, we're going to enter our name and click Remember Me, and the next time you go back to the website, it'll say hello. That's all it's doing. So if we refresh the page, currently it does nothing because it doesn't remember me. And if we enter a name, Trudy, let's say, and click Remember Me, then what that's doing is it's storing Trudy in the local storage. So next time we refresh the page, it says, hello, Trudy. And probably, don't know if it'll overwrite it. Let's say Joan, remember me, and refresh it. Yeah, hello, Joan, right? Now, if I do clear storage, that deletes the data that I've just stored in local storage. And then now if I click refresh, it does nothing. So let's just see a little bit how this works. So we've got a button here. And when we click on the button, it calls this store name function. It does everything we're talking about with the forms and a previous lecture. So it's getting out the name, document get element by ID. It's pulling out the value here. and storing it in the name variable. And then local storage username, that's the key I'm using to store the username. I'm assigning that to the value that I've pulled out of the input here. So I'm using username to store the name that the user's given me when they click the button. And then when the page is refreshed, I've got this onload function attached to the body, onload event, so that it calls show name, calls this function whenever the page loads. And I check to see if the username has been defined or not. If it hasn't been defined, it will do nothing. But if this has been set, if local storage username has been set, then it will say alert, and then I can access the username there by just using localstorage.username. So a very simple example of showing how you can store something in local storage and retrieve it again later. If I want to clear the storage, I just click on the clear storage button, and that calls this event here, and that just calls localstorage.clear method. And it'll wipe out everything from local storage. So just to get clear on the difference between cookies and local storage, so cookies are exchanged every time the client interacts with the server. So if you write a cookie using JavaScript, I'm pretty sure it'll be sent to the server, and the server can set cookies on the user's browser. So that's good. If you're doing a lot of client-server stuff and the server needs to set some data in the browser that it can use at a later date, then cookies are great for that. Local storage doesn't do that for you, because the data in HTML local storage can only be accessed locally by JavaScript, and the server only has access to it if the JavaScript decides to send it to the server using some other method, such as AJAX, WebSockets, whatever. There's different amounts of data can be stored as well. So the cookies stores less data, and HTML local storage more data. So in some contexts, only cookies will do. But if you're just using JavaScript locally within the browser and occasionally need to send a bit of stuff over using AJAX, then local storage is a lot better because it's a lot easier to use. Now, when you're working with local storage, you'll often find it useful to use the Chrome debugging tools, which will let you see the contents of the local storage. So I think probably easier giving a demo of this. So let's go back to my local storage example here. So here's my local storage. So if I do Control-Shift-I in Chrome, then I can see here's my different Chrome tags, and one of these is application. So if I click on application, I've got local storage here, and the file is, contains the actual data, and you've got session storage. So at the moment, my local storage is empty. There's nothing, no keys, no values. Now if I click in remember, so let's do the Hubert, say. Now click on remember me, then that you can see now that it's created an entry in local storage where the key is username and the value is Hubert. If I change, enter a different one, Sarah, remember me, it's username Sarah, whatever. And if I do clear storage, it wipes out the local storage. So this is very useful if you're, working with local storage, you're doing your user registration, your user login functionality. In that case, it's often helpful to see, if you're having problems with it, it's often helpful to use these debugging tools to find out where you're going wrong. Now, the crucial thing to remember about local storage is that the keys and the values are strings. Okay, so if you're storing numbers, you probably get away with storing numbers because the browser will convert them to strings when they're stored and convert them back to numbers depending on context. So you can do something like localstorage.number equals 2. 2 is this number here, integer here. And if we do a localstorage.number times 3, JavaScript will do some clever type conversion and it'll kind of work. Boolean seems to work less well, so probably that will work, I think, if you do the triple equals and compare the strings with the string. But, better to and safer to regard everything as strings that's stored in local storage and not rely too much on the clever type conversion in JavaScript. What you're going to be using local storage for the most in this course will be to store and retrieve arrays and objects. And to do that, you can't store the objects directly because local storage only stores strings, right? But you can convert your object to a string using JSON stringify, store it in local storage. At a later point in time, you can retrieve it from local storage as a string and then convert it to an object using json.parse, what I covered in a previous lecture. So here's a little example. So here we've got a John object, back to John again, who's name John, age 52, hair color brown. Now if I want to store that John object, I can't just do localstorage.john equals John object. because it just won't work because it can only store strings. So I need to use JSON.stringify to convert that John object into a JSON representation of that object in string format. So now local storage.john will contain the JSON string corresponding to this object. When I want to get it back at a later point in time, again, to access the properties of the object and treat it as an object, I need to convert this. This is a JSON string representation of the object. So to convert it back into a JavaScript object, I need to do JSON.parse, and then I can get an object. And once and this retrieved object, I can then invoke the properties of the object or the keys, whatever, to pull out the name, the age, the hair color, and so on. So you must use JSON stringify when you're storing objects in local storage, and you must use JSON parse when you're retrieving objects or convert the string, the JSON string back into an object again. Otherwise, it won't work. You get into lots of difficulties. Yeah, so we kind of covered that. Okay, so let's have a little look at that. make it clear. Okay, so let's get it back to cats. All right, so name, Marmalade, slightly cliched name for a cat, but never mind. Age, 12. That'll do, let's not get too fancy here. Okay, so we're creating an object here. Now if I want to store that object in local storage, let's just try it. Let's do local storage.cat. Let's just do it without any string first, okay? So let's go to here, JavaScript demo. Let's see what it's done. So you can see what this has done. It hasn't stored the object. It's just stored actually a string that just says object. So if I want to, so if I try and do, if I tried to do console.log local storage.cat.name, if we tried to do that, come on, it's done absolutely nothing. It's pausing the debugger for some reason. It's undefined, right? So it's undefined because it doesn't exist, because it's just a string and there's no name property of a string. Okay, so what we need to do instead is to store this thing. We need to do JSON.stringify my cat, and that'll convert my cat object into a nice JSON string, right? So let's get rid of that for the moment. So refresh it. Oh, this debugger thing's annoying. Let's try and get rid of that breakpoint. Right, okay, so now we can get back to the console. Oh yeah, so now we've stored it. Let's just get back to application. Right, so now we got, looking in the local storage, we've got the key cat, and instead of object, we've got this string, which is the JSON representation of the object with the name in quotation marks, Marmalade, age, and 12. So we've stored it correctly now, and now we can retrieve it. So now we can do var obj equals JSON parse local storage.cat. So now we've got an object. We've converted our JSON string back into an object, and we can now do obj.name because it's a proper object, not a string anymore. And did I save that? Yep. Okay, so the thing's stored correctly, and now we've got Marmalade as the output there. So because we've converted it into an object, we can now access the properties of the object correctly. So I thought I'd give you some examples of how you can use local storage to do your registration and login. So I'll sort of briefly talk it through, and you've got the code or whatever. The code, as you'll see, is be a little bit tricky to read, but if you look at the slides on the course website, then that'll explain how you can actually do it. So I'll go through it as carefully as I can. Right. So the idea here is we're going to use local storage. We're going to create a registration page here, and you're going to enter some stuff, click submit, that will store the registration details in local storage using JSON, and then we'll use that information in local storage to enable the user to log in. So I'll give you a little bit of demo of that, and then we can then we'll go on to how it actually works. So let's go to the demo. Okay, so note the registration login pages are separate pages, but both of these pages are on the same domain, so they can access the same local storage. Let's do the registration first. So David, Gamez, A, can't be bothered with this, B.com, and 1, 2, right? So click submit. It says registration successful. It's all well and good. And probably refresh just to give us a blank. Right, so let's just see what we've got inside local storage first. Go to the application tag. So forget about that cat business. Now we've got first name David, last name. So you can just about see I've stored all the information as a JSON representation of an object in local storage. Now if I do login, do a@b.com, 1, 2. Let's do it incorrectly first. We do submit, password not correct, please try again. Get it right. It'll tell me that David's logged in, and whenever I refresh the page, it tells me that David's logged in. So, excuse me. So that's the functionality. So let's go through the examples. I've shown you that already. And if we have multiple people registering, they've got using the key here is their email address, and then the value is the object containing all of the fields in the registration form. We've got first name David, last name Gamez, email davidexample.com, and password as well there. And if multiple people register, you're going to get, as long as the email address is unique, we're going to get multiple email addresses with the corresponding data on the other side. So the first part of this is the form, right? In this case, I'm using a form, always returning false so it doesn't get submitted to the server. We'll refresh the page. And so here we have the data in the form, which I showed you filling in. These are input fields. Each input field's got an ID. And then with the store user function, which is what's called, when I click on submit, it triggers this store user function here. And all that does is it accesses the document object model, pulls out all these different elements of the form, and builds up a JavaScript object containing all the data from the form. So in this case, it's creating an empty object, and then user object dot first name, user object dot last name, user object dot email, etc., etc. So we're building up a JavaScript object containing data from the form. Now we're going to store that JavaScript object. As I've explained multiple times, we need to convert that object into a string, so we use json.stringify. And here, instead of using local storage, I can't do local storage dot the email address because it's kind of a string entered from the user. So in this case, I'm using the square brackets to access, in order to set this key, the key to store the email address as the email address entered by the user. So I can't do local storage.carol.example.com because I don't know when I'm writing this code that the user is going to use carol.example.com, right? So I need to somehow, but I want to use the email address as the key, and I can do that by putting it in these square brackets. These square brackets means that the key will be the string that's included in the square brackets, and therefore I can use store this object, stringified version of the object, with the key as the email address entered by the user. So square brackets, just bear that in mind. And then I've got a bit of feedback to the user. We've got a paragraph with an ID result, and so if the registration's been successful, then I just insert registration successful inside this paragraph, which appears here. So and then we got the login page. So this is the data that's stored for each user. And now I'm going to enter my email address and password and click submit. If the login works, I'm giving feedback to the user saying David logged in or whatever, and clearing these forms out of the way. And I'm storing a new key and value. And the key is logged in user email, and the value is the email address of the user that's been logged in. So I'm adding something to local storage to keep track of the fact that the user's logged in. So this is the sort of whole function for it. So here we have the paragraph, this bit at the top is this stuff here. Here we go. So this is the form where the user enters their details. They enter that, and then we've got at the bottom here, we've got a paragraph that lets us display error messages to the user. Very important, right? If they enter the wrong password or the wrong email, then we need to show that to the user. Of course, we shouldn't actually tell the user what's wrong with their login details, because that makes it easier to hack the system. If they know the email's wrong, they can keep fiddling around with the email till they get it right. It's better to say your email and password combination is incorrect from a security point of view. But anyway, this is just an example. Then we've got when the page loads, whenever the page loads, it calls this check login function that checks to see if the user's logged in already. There's no point displaying the login form if the user's logged in, right? What the check login does is it looks at this logged in user email key to see if it's been defined or been set yet already. If it has been set, then we can use that key to pull out the data structure corresponding to that user. Okay, so if someone types in david@example.com, then this local storage logged in user email will be set to the value of david.example.com. Again, we're using the square brackets here because we want to use that as the key to the local storage, because there's a david.example.com data structure that we want to pull out here. So we're pulling out, in this case, because logged in user email is pointing to david.example.com. Then we're pulling out david.example.com, which is this string here. Then we're doing json.parse, which is converting that string into an object. And then we can use that object, we can access like the first name and give the user feedback that they're logged in. So in this case, we're pulling out this string, converting it to an object, getting out the first name from that object, and saying logged in after that. So we're checking the login function. So if I'm already logged in, no point in asking me to log in. I can just say I'm logged in. So and if I'm not logged in, then I'm going to have a login function, right? And so we have a login function here. So we pull out the email address from the input fields, and then we check to see if the user has an account, right? We want to see if the email address is in our local storage. That's what we're doing here. And if it's not, if we can't find that email address anywhere, then we give them some feedback. We say email not recognized, you have an account in our error paragraph. On the other hand, if the user has an account, then we pull out the data structure corresponding to that user. We get out the password from that, and then we check to see if the password matches the password entered from the user. If it does, we say, great, you're logged in. And if it's not correct, then we give them some feedback saying password not correct, please try again. So these kind of error messages are what I'm expecting you to put into your coursework 1. And I think there's marks for like login functionality with appropriate error messages. So you can take this as a source of inspiration if you like. So I hope that gives you a little bit of an idea about how you can implement the registration login functionality. And as I said, all of this code, you're welcome to adapt and use. I'm not going to include this code in the course website, but I think you can easily read it out from the slides and type it in yourself. I think that's probably more useful than just cutting and pasting a bunch of code I've given you. So you look at the website. If you can't read this on the videos, have a little look at the slides on the course website. So this HTML local storage stuff all comes from is all described very nicely in the Head First HTML5 programming book. So in this lecture, I've introduced you to HTML local storage and cookies, explain the difference between them, and the next lecture is going to explain how you can add animation and graphics to your page. So with a view to being actually implementing your game if your game is going to be more than just a simple quiz.